Hello, my name is Amy John and I am with Design Service Professionals. A couple weeks ago, you participated in a live training event called Clearview, Streamline Your Architectural Practice by Uncovering the Valuable Relationship Between Your Effort and Satisfaction. So today I'm here to show you some of the results that we found. As we left each other, we had a couple of questions that we wanted to answer. The first was, what does this mean for our group? This video that you're watching right now is the group analysis, so we're going to answer that question in depth. But this question here, what does this mean for me? We're gonna sort of hit the tip of the iceberg here in this video, and then there's a self-evaluation video to follow that will give you a lot more information about what it means for you. We're also going to touch on, what if I'm not great at the things I love to do? What if I don't love the things I'm good at doing? If we are in control of our lives, how do we do more of what we like? And what if we have to do these things anyway? So let's get started. The first thing we asked you to do was to list all of the services that you provide on individual sticky notes and place them in this Kano model. So that you place them by ranking them: low effort versus high effort, and low satisfaction versus high satisfaction. What that did was pop everything into a quadrant. So after you placed them in the quadrants, I changed all the colors so that we could easily see which services lived in which quadrants and do some counting. So we came up with some numbers. So if we look here first at this top left quadrant, this is our low effort, high satisfaction quadrant. What's great is that more than a quarter, 29% of your services already live in this quadrant. This is our sweet spot. This is the place where we are the most efficient and reap the most satisfaction. So if we could ask for all of our services to be in any single quadrant, it would be this one right here. So this is what we're trying to get everything else to fit into. Next up, we have this high satisfaction, high effort quadrant. This is also great because, again, it's a high satisfaction place. But just because you love to do these services doesn't mean that it's okay that they take you a lot of effort. Some things just take a long time. It's true. And it's not bad that if it takes a long time, if it has to. But I think that you'll find that it doesn't necessarily have to. And the way I know that is because some of these services, you'll see duplicates. They'll be both in this quadrant and in this quadrant, which means that some consider them high effort and some consider them low effort. And so what I would say is, if you have services in this high satisfaction, high effort quadrant, take a deep look at your process and see where you might streamline that process to be a little bit more efficient, a little bit faster. Think about ways to automate, or partner up with somebody who already feels like that same service is low effort, and ask them questions. Look for a mentor within your EntreArchitect community who might be able to give you some tips on how to streamline these services. So don't neglect the services just because they're high satisfaction, because this is actually a great space for you to increase efficiency without losing that satisfaction. Next up, we have down here this lower left quadrant, and this is your low effort, low satisfaction quadrant. And it's really only 6% of the total of all the services that you provide, so it looks like something that we can just disregard. But I would caution you and say, don't do that. This is such a great place to start eliminating. Do you have to provide the services in this quadrant? If you don't, get rid of them. If you do have to provide it, see if there are ways to automate the services. See if there are ways that you can be just a little bit more efficient in the process of providing them, so that you can further decrease the amount of effort that's required. And then that'll just increase your satisfaction just a little bit more. So this is, again, it's the low-hanging fruit, but it really matters because these little things add up really quickly, and it's a great way to increase your satisfaction. All right. Now we get to the heavier one. So this quadrant is your high effort, low satisfaction quadrant. These are things that you really don't like to do, and they take you a lot of work to do them. 30% of all of the services you provide fall into this quadrant. So this is actually the majority of your services. If you look at these other quadrants, this is 31 and this is 29. So a higher percentage of all the services you provide fit into this quadrant. And so this is the one where there's really the most amount of work. So when you're looking to improve the services that live in this quadrant, I would ask the following questions. First of all, is this service necessary? That's always going to be your first question. And the reason for that is because you may be providing that service because another client asked you to do it a long time ago. And these other clients you have might not care at all. So when you think about the service, dive into it yourself and ask the question, is this service necessary? But also ask your clients if it's really necessary. Next up, ask what tools exist to make this process easier. There are so many tools out there, tools to automate, tools to eliminate services. So as an example, I reached out to my team and they were able to give me an example of, for the punch list service, tools like Bluebeam, Procore, and PlanGrid can make that process a little bit faster. The next question is, can this service be automated? And a great example of that is time tracking to bookkeeping. So you may have a time tracking tool and you may have a bookkeeping tool, but if those two tools do not communicate, then there's room there for automation. Find a tool that'll allow you to track your time and then also shove that data straight into your bookkeeping tool so that you don't have to spend time transferring it. That's a really great way to automate. The next question is there someone who might want to collaborate? So this is such a great feature of a Kano model. The first thing is you look, okay, so you've put code review as an example down here in high effort, low satisfaction. Well, take a look, follow this line. Someone else put code review up here in that sweet spot quadrant, in that low effort, high satisfaction quadrant. So that tells you that someone in the EntreArchitect community feels the opposite, the exact opposite that you do about code review. And it's a moment for you to say, okay, let's collaborate. Will you please tell me everything that you know about code review? What are the things that make it so efficient for you? What are the things you love about it? And look for a mentor, someone who can guide you and make it a little bit easier for you to provide that service. Also, consider highest and best use. So if you have someone who is really fast and really good at code review, it would make sense to bring that person onto your team to do code review for you. If they can do it just a little bit faster, you can be more efficient overall in your process for your clients. So consider maybe collaborating. You can trade services, you can do a lot of things to collaborate. And the last question is, what would it take for me to be willing to outsource? This is a heavy question sometimes, right? Because you really want to control the service that you provide. So dive deeply into all of the reasons that you don't outsource and think about all of the reasons that you might do it. Think about like code review. If someone can do it more efficiently than you, that might be a reason to outsource. It might be cheaper in the long run to do it. So there's a bottom line reason. You might outsource because it drives your satisfaction down so low that it's worth it to you to ask someone else to do it. But then there are probably some barriers to outsourcing, like trust. So if it's something that requires a significant amount of quality control, think about ways to automate that quality control so that you can teach someone or even ask someone specifically to do just a small portion of it so that you can maintain the quality that you're looking for. So just look for creative ways to figure out how you might outsource and how you would feel comfortable outsourcing. Again, the overall idea is to learn about these services and figure out how we can reduce the amount of effort required to provide them and increase the amount of satisfaction. And those two things really do work hand in hand usually. So we're going to step away from the Kano model just a little bit and take a look at these services grouped again by phase. So when we first asked you to list all the services, we asked you to put them in this in here by phase. And the reason for that is because it helps us remember the services that we provide. But now, as we look back on it, there's some really interesting insight. So for this analysis, I'm going to skip the pre and post phases and all of the operating tasks. I still have a lot to talk about with those, but for timing, we're just going to focus in here on the standard architectural practice. But if you have questions, let me know. So looking within the standard architectural practice, what's really great here is that you start here in SD with 93% satisfaction. You guys love SD, and it's not surprising, but it's still wonderful to see such a high satisfaction rating for an entire phase of work. So well done. What's interesting is that satisfaction rating lowers as you go down through the architectural practice. So DD is 67, 60 in CD, 58 in bid select, and 38 in CD. This is where I start to feel a little bit apprehensive. So looking sort of deeply into why this satisfaction rating might be so low, I turned to my colleagues, and they give me a lot of insight. One of the things that they talked about was this historic idea that CA is just not a creative phase of work. And one of my coworkers mentioned that he feels like it really is a creative phase of work, and that he wishes that more people in the field felt that way too. And so I would say, when you're thinking about CA, do you have this sort of historic belief that CA is just not creative and that's why it's not satisfying? If that's true to you, try to look for ways to bring creativity back into CA. Look for things that might already be there, and try to find the creative ways to do them. Another reason why CA can be challenging is because it's filled with adversarial experiences. I get it. This is the part where everyone's coming together to make the building happen. So I would say one of the first things to do is to consider partnering with a contractor in the beginning of your design phase. A design build contract will enable you to bring that contractor into all of the decisions that are being made throughout the process, and that can help relieve some of the tension that you might experience in CA. Another thing is just about perspective. When I heard my colleagues talking, I kept thinking, gosh, it'd be nice to have the contractor's perspective here. And I think that kind of goes for the rest of the architectural practice as a whole. So when you're looking at your drawings, consider, okay, I'm putting on my contractor goggles now. How might the contractor see this a little bit differently than I see it? And so look at it throughout the entire phase through that contractor lens. The last thing I'll say is prepare at the beginning. So whenever I work a lot in process is kind of my jam. And so when parts of the process in the end are feeling a little bit sticky, we look at the beginning of the process usually to figure out what we could have done to front load that process with all of the helpful tools to make the end of the process go more smoothly. And I think that practice really lends itself well to CA. For an example, QC. This is a moment where you really are looking for the quality. You have to check everything off in all of these checklists. So if those checklists are part of your whole process, if you're reviewing those same checklists through SD, DD, CD, all the way through to CA, then you're familiar with them. They are not new. And when you get to them in the end, they'll almost check themselves off. Another thing that I would say is partnerships. And this is, like we talked about before, partner with your contractor in the beginning, right? Same concept here. But what I would say is take a look at mentor partnerships as well, especially if you're new to architecture or you're just new at having your own firm. Take a look around for some sort of collaborative effort, someone who will do peer reviews for you along the way, someone who will give you some insight and say, okay, look at this from your CA perspective and see if there are any challenges that I might face along the rest of the architectural phases, so that by the time you get to CA, you'll be prepared from every single perspective you can possibly think of. So look for partners, look for mentors, look for collaborators. This has been such an incredible process for me. I've learned so much about architecture, and it's been a real pleasure to be able to dive deeply into your process. So I say thank you for that. I also just would say that, as we look at your self-evaluation, it's the next video, really consider yourself zooming in to the work that you do and then zooming back out as you consider this group as a whole, because the EntreArchitect community is so strong, and I see so many moments here for collaboration and mentorship and really just this thought leadership that might help bring, as an example, CA back into this this limelight back into a place where we might really enjoy it. And again, if you go back up here to the quadrants, if you're struggling with a certain service, look for that service somewhere else, or shout out to your EntreArchitect community and say, hey, does anybody put this service in their low effort, high satisfaction quadrant? Now you have some language to use to communicate with each other and to look for moments of collaboration. There's so much more that we could go over here. I love doing this work. So if you have any other questions, please reach out to us. I know Jeff will give you some contact information, and we'll be able to talk about your individual models or just some questions you have about the group model. So again, thank you, and please reach out to us if you have any questions. Have a great day.